we both have spent some time studying the top three quarterbacks, the top three names, I guess you should say. And I'll tease it, I've got the First Look series that's going to be coming out at NFL.com, where what I do is I'll watch 3 games on a player, and it's kind of just my first exposure to him, my first impression, and I'll do a little write-up on him. And I think the first one is coming either later this week or early next week. Is going to be Justin Fields, the Ohio State quarterback. But I spent time watching Trevor Lawrence from Clemson, Justin Fields from Ohio State, and then Trey Lance from North Dakota State. And I'd seen, you see these guys when you're studying other players and you kind of see the flashes. But, sit down for the first time and dig in and watch 3 tapes. We'll obviously get a chance to watch a lot more as we go through the process and through next year. But it's a healthy exercise, I think, during this time of the year, Buck, to get that first exposure to these players.
Well, when we were working for a team, DJ, this is what we would do. Like the month of June is what we call doing quote unquote junior tape. What it is the lists come out. We get a feel for who are the players in our area. And what you do is you go back and look at last year's film on those guys. And part of the reason why you're doing that is just first exposure. It's also to help you set your schedule in terms of who do I really need to see multiple times. I need to see him early in training camp in August. I need to see him again in the middle of the year. And I have enough time. I need to go back one more time at the end of the year and see them. And so normally you want to reserve those trips for your A-listers, your top players. And so your First Look series is really a microcosm of that. It is, hey, these are the names that we're hearing. Let me get a glance at them to kind of get a feel for what they are. And I'm not married to what I say about them in the summertime, but this is kind of like the foundation, the jump off point for what my evaluation will be as we kind of do a 365-day look at them.
Yeah, it's just that first glimpse. Again, I just used that phrase, the first look. It's our first look at these players. And we always talk about, maybe this is the right city, right? We always use the line, get them in the right neighborhood. Eventually we'll get them in the right house. During the summer, I feel like let's just get them in the right city, man. Let's just get them in the right city. Kind of, are you a dude? Are you not a dude? Then we'll go to the fall. We'll try and get you in the right, the right neighborhood. And then we get to draft day, we need to have you in the right home. But again, it's just that kind of first big picture look at these guys. So why don't you fire away here on the first one, Trevor Lawrence, somebody you've got a chance, and we both got a chance to see him up there at the opening in high school. So you've seen this kid for a long time. The hype was incredible, but he was good enough to put an undefeated starter on the bench, right, that year at Clemson. He came with hype, and so far he's lived up to it. But what have you seen from him when you really studied him?
Look, man, he came into Clemson billed as to cast me out, and he certainly has lived up to it. 6'6", 220 pounds. He's a rare combination of a guy who has outstanding arm talent and explosive athleticism for a guy that is his stature. You really don't see guys that are 6'6" that can move like he moves. I think the things that stand out to me, his movement skills, the fact that he's able to run like quarterback read game, quarterback design runs. They did it this year more than last year, and he really thrived at that. He is what I call a big play hunter. He wants the big play. He wants to push the ball down the field. He throws more 50-50 balls to his playmakers than anybody that I've seen in recent years, and that includes Joe Burrow, because Joe Burrow made a living off of the 50-50 ball. The reason why he does it at Clemson had a basketball team on the outside. All of their receivers are 6'2", 6'3", or taller. He throws it up, lets them go get it, and trust them. I think the thing that I absolutely love about his game, he has the back shoulder fade down. Aaron Rodgers has made a living off of it in Green Bay. Trevor Lawrence has that club in his bag. The one thing that I worry about Trevor Lawrence, I think he's more of a scorer than a shooter. He is super talented. He's a playmaker. I don't know how refined he is in terms of, hey, I'm going to play connect the dots football from the pocket, meaning I'm going to take the check down. I'm going to work it horizontally from east to west. I'm going to mix in some pushes down the field. To me, he's a guy he's looking for the big ball whenever it's there, and he's going to take it. And I just wondered, is he refined enough to play a disciplined underneath game when teams take that away? The last 2 games in the playoffs, LSU and Ohio State, collectively, he was right around 51% completion rate. And some of that is due to them playing snug coverage on the outside. Lawrence doesn't necessarily work the underneath areas like he could or should when they take away the deep ball and make him play with patience and discipline.
That's fantastic. Look, I think it's great for listeners to know that we talk about kind of what you want to watch here. And we were talking about this before we went on about another of these guys, but which games did you watch so that you can go over which games you watched, and then I'll tell you which games I watched, and we can kind of see if there's any differences based off just the games that you watch.
So I watched him versus UNC. I watched UVA, the ACC championship game, and then I watched LSU and Ohio State. I also threw in Georgia Tech too.
Okay. You get a nice study there. Nice little 5-game eval there over the summer. I see you working.
There was nothing on TV, so I just kind of whizzed through it.
All right. I watched Texas A&M early game, South Carolina, and Ohio State. We all saw. I mean, we've seen the LSU tape so many times doing all these guys for the draft that, and I know he did not play as well in that game, so I was going to put that one aside and watch these other 3 games, see what I came up with. This is what I really liked about Trevor Lawrence. Everything is real crisp. He's got real crisp feet. He's real urgent in his movement. He's real sudden. He's explosive. He's an explosive mover with his quickness inside the pocket. He can really drive the football. He's got a quick delivery. He can tighten up his delivery when he's throwing things underneath. You can see him change it and tighten it up a little bit. It gets a little bit long at times, but he has the ability to tighten it up. He can anticipate and work in the middle of the field. There's no fear with the way he plays. You talked about attacking. He loves to attack down the field. You talk about him as a runner. He builds up that speed with that long stride. He's a tough kid. He'll shoulder and show you some of that toughness, which maybe not the best idea going forward. I don't see him get to the number 3 in the progression very often. It's usually 1 or 2 balls out or take off and go. There's times where his feet can trail his eyes a little bit, where he's working through progression with his eyes, but his feet aren't following him there. So that's something you can correct and you can work on. He can escape and create plays, which I love. The major knock that I had on him is I just didn't think he was as accurate as I would have hoped, just in terms of pinpoint accuracy, ball placement. Some of them are completions because he's got great guys, but I didn't see an elite level accuracy. And also on some of the deep balls, and this is of what you discussed, when you have big receivers like that, better to be underthrown than overthrown, right? You give your guys a chance. But there's several in these games that I watched. There's several balls where, man, he's got guys. Just put it out there, let him go run underneath that. So some underthrown balls there. So that was kind of my takeaway. He's a fantastic prospect, but it wasn't the accuracy level that maybe I would have expected. And again, this is just the 3 games that I watched.
No, DJ, so I think we see him very, very similarly. I think our descriptions are very close. I feel like the routes that he is absolutely a dime thrower, bang 8s and slants. Yeah. His ability to run the RPO game or the fake play action and hit the skinny post on time, he can throw all those in-breaking routes. For someone with as strong of an arm, you don't really see him throw many out-breaking routes outside the numbers. You'll see a sail or maybe a bench route, but he doesn't really throw comebacks and those things or whatever. It's funny, in my notes I have footwork and inconsistent rhythm. Like I did feel like his feet weren't always in rhythm where you can just deal on time. Yeah. And now I'm saying that knowing that the talent is tremendous. Like the talent is off the charts. But I am saying, because we've heard comparisons to Andrew Luck and best prospect and those things, I would say that Andrew Luck was more refined and more polished at this stage. Like Andrew Luck was dealing the cards like a casino dealer. Like he understood how to kind of get from 1 to 2 to 3 in rhythm on time. Trevor doesn't necessarily play on time and on schedule all the time, but his arm talent is so great that he's able to make up for it. I will say this, his escapability, he is unique in his ability to escape to the left and make accurate throws. Most right-hand quarterbacks, when they go left,
does a good job of pulling his shoulders and squaring.
When they go left, the bad stuff happens. For Trevor, the big plays happen when he escapes to his left.
All right, let's get to Justin Fields here. What games did you watch and what did you see, Buck?
Let's see with Justin Fields. So Justin Fields was Michigan game, Clemson playoff game, Michigan State, and it was one other, maybe Rutgers. I think Rutgers is what I have written down. Here's what I would say. He is a time and a rhythm thrower to me. He plays a little more of the intermediate game A-plus playmaker, excellent arm. He's a time and rhythm passer with pop. He throws on time. He's accurate. He throws with a variety of pace on his throws. And he really does a good job of working the 10 to 20-yard box. Digs, comebacks, all those things, he throws it. I think he is a really good runner. He's tough and explosive. He is better to me when they play up-tempo and they play with pace. It just kind of hits his wheelhouse. My areas of concern with him, blitz reaction versus changing coverage. When teams brought pressure and they could change the coverage, meaning they would bring a variety of pressure up front, but the coverage may go from man to zone to hot coverage. Needs experience with that because I thought I saw some problems. And then I think the bigger thing, and this is just one of those things that just kind of hangs in the distance, the stuff that you hear about him from Georgia, not necessarily maybe being like the most dialed in worker. I just think it needs investigation. That's all. I don't have anything to really go by on tape, but it's just one of the things that kind of came out of the program at Georgia that they wanted him to take the job from Fromm, but he didn't seize it. And he didn't seize it because maybe he allowed Fromm to outwork him.
All right, so I want to go through this a little bit because this is fascinating because the games you mentioned, I watched Michigan, Michigan State, Wisconsin. So you watched Michigan and Michigan State, right? So we watched a lot of the same games. And this is what happens. This is kind of a peek behind the curtain when you go into a draft meeting. So you could have two players who could see a player very similarly, and you could see a player, two scouts see a guy very differently. So in this case, I want to show you some of my notes here, okay? But think about what you just said, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see this at all, but see that? Let me see if you can see it up there. I don't know if you can see it here. All right, so you see it now? Yeah. So you see things I circled? Holds ball, right?
Yeah.
Holds ball sack. See the rhythm? See, I've got rhythm written down a couple different places. First read rhythm, right? You talked about being a rhythm thrower.
Yeah.
Struggles to ID the blitz. You see that?
Yes.
See, holds ball sack. You see that down there? Like,
yeah.
I was listening to you kind of go through and talk about some of your notes, and because we watch the same games, and because this is kind of what you do, right? We kind of see some of the same things, have some of the same concerns, but when he's in rhythm, he's accurate. He can, he throws with anticipation. Even like you'll see him on a 7-step rhythm comebacks. You'll see him back foot in the ground, balls out on time, perfect placement. But when you have to see him, he gets corner cats or different looks that kind of come out of the blue. He just struggled to get that, to feel that, and to get through that. I think he's outstanding as a runner. He's very elusive as a runner. I posted one play on Twitter that shows his ability to make people miss in space. He did a good job down in the red zone. Really good ball handling in the RPO game.
Yeah.
Very comfortable in that. When he has to reset, like he can move and climb around. The difference I would say I would give Lawrence the edge is that when Lawrence gets moved around, he can then square up and still deliver the ball inside the pocket in a nice posture, in a nice throwing posture. When he gets moved off of his spot, he wants to kind of drift and get out of there. You don't see him then put your feet back in the ground and then be able to throw the football. So that's an area he can improve on. But I thought, like Lawrence, this same thing here with Justin Fields, moving to the left, really good job squaring his shoulders and being accurate when he's on the move out there. I don't know if you noticed it. I put down everything's out of a 3/4 arm slot, so he's a little bit lower with his release point.
But he has a baseball background.
Yeah,
he has a baseball. I know he played all the way up into college. He didn't get drafted. I need to see if
he was supposed to be a big time prospect.
Yeah,
I remember
because he was supposed to be a prospect or whatever. But like he has some of that, so maybe he gets some of that from being able to throw from different platforms and the like. Man, it's funny how we saw those things, but yeah, because Blick's reaction with changing coverage, it just stunned him. And some of that is in Trevor Lawrence, we're seeing a guy who was a 2-year starter, and Justin Fields is a 1-year starter.
Yeah.
And so the experience factor, just the amount of reps being in games and those things. And the funny thing is, DJ, I end up putting the same grade on both of the guys, but I mean, I think both guys have some work to do when we talk about comparing them to some of the greats that have come out in recent years in the last decade. I just think they have things that they certainly can work on. I don't think they're finished products by any means heading into their final seasons or what could be their final seasons.
if I was going to use the one main difference is really simple, right? It's vision. I think I have Lawrence over Fields because I think Lawrence has better vision, and that comes some of it's IDing pressure. Some of that's also just missing some opportunities. Justin Fields misses when he has some opportunities. Just overall field vision. I don't think he's as good as Lawrence in terms of just how he sees the field.
It's funny because I had these guys described as shooter and scorer. I think Justin Fields is more natural in the pocket on rhythm, so I think he's more of a shooter. I think Trevor Lawrence is a better scorer, meaning if the game breaks down, like he can improvise and find ways, and he just finds a way to make these big plays or whatever. It's a fascinating thing, and I think the thing that's really fascinating about the two of them, they have always been linked together, 1 and 2, whatever order. But I think they grew up within 200 miles of each other. So how uncommon is it
both in Georgia,
that both guys are from Georgia, and they have always been. So now it reminds me a lot of the Julio Jones, AJ Green thing. They never can be separated just because they've always been kind of joined at the hip.
That's interesting. All right, let's get to the third one here. This is Trey Lance. We've talked about it a little bit before, but North Dakota State. What games did you watch and what did you see, Buck?
I watched Montana State, Nicholls State, and then the championship game, James Madison.
Okay.
First thing that I put in my notes, rock solid quarterback prospect. Rock solid, not a lot to worry about with him. Very good arm talent, athleticism, dual threat, has a game that works in any system. Shotgun, under center, vertical, horizontal, bootlegs, play action, whatever it is, he can do it. Love him in the run game, design runs, scrambles. He's tough. He's physical. In the passing game, he can catch, rock, and throw. You see him with the bubbles and the swing passes. High completion percentage, takes the layups when the layups are there, makes great decisions. In fact, in my notes, I said he is a perfect Kyle Shanahan quarterback. In fact, I wrote down, I won't even pull up my notebook, I wrote down Jimmy Garoppolo. Because to me, when I'm looking at him, he reminds me a lot of Jimmy Garoppolo when I watched Jimmy Garoppolo at Eastern Illinois. Rhythm, patience, timing, better runner. But in looking at how Jimmy Garoppolo plays in San Francisco's offense, you put Trey Lance in that offense, Trey Lance is a superstar.
All right, so let's do a little bit of this again here. Okay, let me just show you a little bit of things that I circled here, Buck. Can you see?
Yeah, on the gun,
on
the center, on the gun. Yeah, all of it.
Hold on. See, you see the takes the layups is the exact same phrase that you used. Isn't that funny?
Yeah, he does. It is easy to watch him. Like you almost get scared watching him because I'm like, man, this dude, he does a lot of good things. The only thing that I knocked him on a little bit, he has some moments where he was a little streaky with the accuracy and ball placement. Like he would skip some balls on the outside a little bit, but overall, he's an easy. All three of these guys are pretty easy evaluations, but he is definitely someone that, man, I could see winning with because he takes care of the ball. He can run it. He's versatile. He's adaptable. I think whatever kind of offensive coordinator you are, I just think he works. I think he works in your system. Scheme.
All right, let me preface this by saying 3 games, right? I've watched 3 games on this kid. And maybe there's, I'm sure there are. I'm sure there's other games where there's bad tape on everybody, right? I'm sure there's bad tape out there. I didn't see a lot of negatives with this kid when I watched him. I watched UC Davis, Nicholls, and Delaware. I know the level of competition, it is what it is. Mm-hmm. But the stuff that you talked about, he can play in any system. He can play under, he's in the gun. He's got excellent ball handling. He's outstanding with all that stuff. But I want to, before I get to the rest of the notes, I want to go through the checklist of the 5 things, because we always say you gotta have your values, what you believe in, and stick to them. So I started when I started evaluating and kind of doing homework on guys that hit and guys that missed at the quarterback position, I kind of boiled down to my big 3, and I've since added 2 to this, and some of it's from our discussions with these different coaches, with the Urban Meyers, Dabo Sweeney's, all these different guys. as well as talking to guys at the NFL level. But I started with accuracy, decision-making, and poise. The big three, right? Accuracy, decision-making, poise. Since then, I've added playmaking ability and toughness. So that gives you 5 pillars, right? This kid's accuracy of the games that I watched was excellent, was very good. His decision-making is impeccable. I mean, he does not put the ball in harm's way. He had probably one turnover-worthy throw. He didn't throw a pick this year. Not a single pick. So decision-making, outstanding. Poise. I mean, he's very comfortable, very calm with his poise. His playmaking ability, outstanding. I mean, he can create with his legs. He can extend plays, throw. He can take from run. You can use him on design, QB power, all these different quarterback run game you saw Carson do there. His kid does the same thing. And the last thing is the toughness. I've seen this kid drop his shoulder at the 4-yard line and run over a safety to get in the end zone. I mean, he is tough. He'll hang in the pocket. So he literally hits everything on my checklist. So then I go through and look at some of my other notes here. The big thing, I starred this 3 times. Confident, trust his eyes. There is no hesitation. When he sees it, if it's there, boom, take it. If it's not there, I'm off of it. I'm working down my check downs, get the ball out. We just keep moving the ball down the field. He's efficient. I think you use a kind of efficient, explosive. Like this kid he has got a loose arm. He has the arm strength to beat coverage, and he does a nice job of those opportunities to take it. He takes it, but it's not too much. He's not over aggressive with it. They ran over the safety. That was in the UC Davis game.
Oh, he does that a few times. He does that. I think
does it in other games as well.
Yeah, that's he kind of sneaks like he's going out of bounds. Then he turns up and he just drums him.
I saw him work full field more than the other 2 guys did too. I saw him work all the way across the field, get deeper into progressions. Now he's playing with a really good team against teams that aren't as good. So I mean, look, Ohio State and Clemson are going to be better than just about everybody they line up against too. But there was a distinctive difference there. So I take that into account. I thought he had really good vision and feel down in the red zone. I thought he threw with good touch. If it's not there, he'll take it and run. I mean, we use the phrase, right? Don't scout the helmet. So if you don't have reputation and you don't scout the helmet and just watch 3 games on 3 players, based off the 3 games that I watched, this kid was the most impressive of the 3 quarterbacks. And again, people will lose their mind over that. Trevor Lawrence is outstanding, and Trevor Lawrence, is going to be in the pole position coming into the fall. But just off the small sample size, I thought this kid played better than Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields in the 3 games I watched.
So here's a couple things to that statement. And we've been at this enough to understand how the evaluation process goes. It's kind of like a starting point, right? And so when you see someone like this, and just so everyone understands, we will dub him as a small school player. But what happens is when you see someone that plays like this at a small school, you put a little star in your nose, because this means that I not only need to go watch him again, but I need to go see him in person. I need to really get a feel for who he is as a player and who he's playing against, so I can just gotta have better context. But here's what I'll say about North Dakota State. The last 2 quarterbacks that have played there have played or are playing in the National Football League. Carson Wentz and Easton Stick. We've seen those guys play in the league. The offense that they run translates very well to the National Football League. What they're asking their quarterbacks to do, it is an easy evaluation, because when I turn off their film and I turn on Sunday tape, it's the same. And even though the league is morphing into more college football-like stuff at quarterback, it's still easy to see him play in a system that we will dub more pro style and be like, oh, okay, I can see that working. The only reason why I really didn't put Trey Lance above those guys is because I'm a little more conservative when I see someone at that level, that I just kind of pause before going big. Even though I've had mentors tell me, oh no, go big all times. Regardless of the level, go big. The only reason that I've paused on Trey Lance is because it's a little different apples or oranges. So when I looked at the grades, I'm still using an old grading scale. I had Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields at 7.3. I have Trey Lance at 7.1. And so what we're talking about is the difference between maybe a top 10 pick and a top 15, a top 20 pick. The separation isn't that great, but I just had him a notch below until I see him this year or whatever. But we're speaking the same language. He is in the conversation with those other two guys. How about that?
I'm thinking back. This will be a fun exercise. Maybe somebody can do this that's listening. Go back and look one of these up. But I remember my first mock draft, Carson Wentz's year. I think I had him going like 3, or I had him going in the top 10. And at the time, it was like a little bit similar to this discussion of fringe first rounder. Like this guy potentially could go in the first round. I remember that came out the week of the Senior Bowl. And I was like, nah, this dude, I had him as the top quarterback, and he was like way up there. People lose their minds because it's easy for us to say don't scout the helmet. But as a general public, you're like, I've been watching Trevor Lawrence play on the big stage week after week. I don't even know this kid.
But that's not even it.
Yeah.
I've heard everybody tell me that he's going to be number 1 for the last 2 years. Yeah. So when you come with something different, what are you telling me? Everybody else is telling me that he is the lock. He's the best thing that we've seen since Andrew Luck. So why all of a sudden now is it different?
Yeah. Yeah. No, and again, we've got plenty of time. There's nothing's written in ink right now, and we'll see how this kid does. All I know is if you're asking me, do I like my quarterback to never lose football games and never turn the ball over? Yeah, I'm into that. Call me crazy. I like that. I don't know if there's ever been a more impressive stat line than what this kid did. Go do yourself a favor. Go look up his numbers. 28 touchdowns, no picks. I think he ran for over 1,000 yards, a ton of touchdowns on the grounds. By the way, didn't lose a football game, won a national championship. His first year as a starter.
I mean, that's what you like. And I think we can say that for most of these kids, like they take care of it. They win at a high level. They understand it. I think the overall theme of the discussion, if I'm a team in need of a quarterback, and I can't think of many teams, I feel good about this next class coming down the pipe. I feel real good. These kids are all good. I feel real good about the 3 that could be in this next draft class. I'm okay with it.
Yeah. No, it's going to be fun, man. It's, again, first look series, just getting a first look at these guys. We'll do a deeper dive on as we go through the fall, and this will adjust and change. But it's exciting. I think it's definitely at least you have to say this is they're 3 dudes, man. Like this is not just Trevor Lawrence all by himself. Like this is an incredible class so far. The first look at these 3 guys.
And I think it's important that people understand when we talk about as 3 dudes, it is a legit competition with 3 dudes. It's not like, oh, here are the first 3 that are going to go, and we're just going to anoint Trevor Lawrence or whoever as number 1. Like, no, we really need to see how this plays out, because this discussion next year, draft time, could be where, hey, Trey Lawrence is legitimately the number 1 guy at the position, and we need to give him his just due. It'll be a fascinating discussion, fascinating thing to track as we go through this season.